Japanese food like sushi and ramen may be famous worldwide, but food from abroad can of course be found within Japan's borders, with curry being one of the most popular and widely available dishes. By some counts, as many as 7,000 restaurants in Japan serve Indian and Nepalese curry, far outpacing the roughly 3,000 McDonald's, 200 Subways, and 10 Taco Bells that can be found across Japan. But the prevalence of curry might be about to change, not because of Japanese people's palates, economic downturn, or some kind of Hormuz-related spice shortage, but because curry restaurants are getting caught up in the dragnet of a crackdown on immigration. This is Japan's war on curry. At the core of this issue is the business manager's visa, a permit for foreign residents that was introduced in 2015, replacing a similar visa category and allowing non-Japanese people to come to Japan and establish their own businesses, without being sponsored by a local company, a far more common visa pathway. Established under arch-conservative former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo, the visa was essentially a scheme to attract investment and foreign talent to Japan. But as visa holders under this criteria steadily increased to a high of around 45,000, concerns have grown that some foreign-owned companies don't exist to perform legitimate business, but instead merely to help their owners secure permission to live in Japan. In late 2023 and 2024, Japan's Immigration Services Agency, ISA, launched investigations into 300 foreign-owned businesses suspected of being shell companies. Investigators found that 90% of the pre-selected cases had issues. In late 2025, these findings were used to justify a proposal to overhaul the requirements for the business manager visa, with the new rules taking effect in October. This came at a time of political transition in Japan. The rules were implemented while former Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru was still in office, but were promulgated a mere 6 days after Takaichi Sane succeeded Ishiba as head of the Liberal Democratic Party, and became the presumptive prime minister in waiting. The move fit neatly with Takaichi's political brand, which has emphasized tighter immigration controls and concerns about crime and rules violations by foreign nationals. The reforms stipulate a handful of changes, including requirements for business expertise and considering Japanese language ability. But the biggest and most consequential change would be the capital requirement. Previously, visa holders were required to have either 5 million yen in capital, about $30,000, or 2 full-time employees. But under the new rules, this requirement was increased to 30 million yen, about $190,000, and at least 1 full-time employee. Unsurprisingly, this new capital requirement is a steep hill to overcome for the vast majority of business managers. Official statistics indicate that only 4% of business manager visa holders currently meet the requirement. For businesses owned by Japanese citizens, over 91% similarly don't have 30 million yen in capital. While the 45,000 business managers may be a small portion of Japan's roughly 4 million foreign residents, these new rules present an existential threat to the existence of foreign-owned small businesses in general, the most visible of those being restaurants, like the thousands of independently owned and operated curry shops around the country. Government data has shown that since the new rules took effect, applications for business manager visas have fallen by 96%. At a press conference discussing the issue, Japanese immigration czar Onoda Kimi, a half-Japanese, half-American millennial who has become the face of the crackdown, said that the government viewed the steep decline in applications positively and saw it as evidence that the restrictions have been effective in curbing misuse of the visa. However, in a separate interaction, an ISA official questioned by lawmakers admitted that the government does not maintain statistics on fraud cases involving foreign business owners. So while the 96% fall in applications for new visa holders perfectly matches the 96% of current holders who fail to meet the criteria, suggesting the 30 million yen requirement may be an insurmountable barrier to most, there's currently no way to know if or to what extent shell companies have been weeded out, despite the government's professed confidence. There's also the question of if a capital requirement is effective at all, considering the fact that many illegitimate visa holders are framed as being wealthy individuals, to whom the $190,000 barrier may present little issue. For this reason and others, foreign business owners have expressed confusion with why the government would choose to raise the criteria instead of just increasing scrutiny and inspections, if the goal was to eliminate shell companies. Also, the 90% statistic from the initial ISA investigations is frequently touted as evidence that 90% of business manager visa holders are doing so illegitimately, but that's fundamentally incorrect. 90% of pre-selected cases already suspected of being illegitimate were found to have problems. In the meantime, current visa holders remain in limbo, with their livelihoods at risk. In order to renew visas, the government is allowing a 3-year grace period to meet the new requirements, including hiring additional employees, achieving a minimum level of Japanese, and most critically, having $190,000 in capital. However, business owners must present a plan for how they intend to achieve this, and can be rejected if officials aren't satisfied. Onoda herself has said that this does not mean that just anyone will be approved. While there aren't any statistics available to indicate how many visa holders seeking renewal have been given a grace period or rejected, stories have already popped up online about longtime residents being forced to shut down their businesses and leave Japan. Perhaps the story that's gained the most attention is that of Manish Kumar, an Indian national who has lived in Japan for 30 years. Kumar said his visa renewal application has been rejected, and he has no choice but to shut down the restaurant he's operated in Saitama for 18 years and vacate the country along with his family. 2 weeks ago, ISA told me to go back to my own country. My children were born and raised in Japan. They only understand Japanese. Their only friends are Japanese. But we are being forced to go back to India. What am I supposed to do? Kumar said at a rally opposing the changes. But even for the business managers that have been granted a grace period, they must still eventually meet the capital requirement or risk having their renewal rejected. And while there may be ways for business managers to obtain different visas, such as permanent residency or employment sponsorship, there are no straightforward paths. A petition seeking to reverse the capital requirement in favor of higher scrutiny on business operations has received tens of thousands of signatures. But the government has shown little sign of letting up, and further immigration tightening measures are being considered. While preventing a system from being taken advantage of is not only understandable but necessary, painting with such a broad brush throws hardworking, law-abiding individuals into the same basket as criminals, and threatens to uproot the lives of real people for the crime of not being wealthy enough. Yeah.